this is mitzvah 193, negative commandment 193, Kilayim. I don't think we did this last time.
No.
He prohibited us from eating forbidden mixtures, specifically of the vineyard, which means that you have a vineyard, but you're growing other vegetables or vines or trees in close proximity to the vines of your vineyard. In order to violate this prohibition, which is called kala'e hakerem, which is the kala'im, forbidden mixtures involving a vineyard, in order to violate this, you don't actually have to graft fruit together or graft trees together or even graft vines together. You just have to plant them close together, and you've already violated this commandment. But if you actually produce, let's say you do graft them together and you produce some kind of a new fruit, this doesn't, like, let's say there's different types of grapes. That's not a forbidden, it's not forbidden to graft those together. This would be like if you made a fruit out of, let's say, a grape and a peach or something, and you somehow figured out how to make it like a nectarine is a peach and a plum. So you did it with you did it with, let's say, grapes and something else, another, what's considered another species. That product would be forbidden. You cannot eat that product. This is not true of any other Kilayim. Other forbidden mixtures, like you're allowed to eat a nectarine. You're allowed to eat the end product. Let's say Gentiles created this fruit that you're eating, then it was not forbidden for them to create it, and it's not forbidden for you to eat the end product, but it is forbidden to eat the end product of from a vineyard. And that is his may be exalted saying, lest the expansion become separated, tikdash. Tikdash is from the word holy, but here it means, it's a funny usage of holy. That word holy, kadosh, is sometimes used away from its common meaning. The common meaning is holy, but you have a version of it like the word kadesha for a prostitute, or in this case, tikdash, the word for that it's become forbidden. Like, so this word in its most specific meaning means like set aside. Typically, when we use it, we mean set aside for God or for service of God. And that's what we mean by holy. But like a prostitute is off to the side, they were typically off to the side of the road. And here it means set aside as forbidden material. And the tradition appeared, lest tikdash, lest tukad esh, it be burnt from fire, meaning to say it is not permissible to benefit from it. So it has to, in other words, go to the fire, as it were. Do not, or do not. It is nothing other than a negative commandment. So that's he's trying to explain that this is a negative commandment. In the second chapter of Psachim, when they said, we do not give lashes for any of the prohibitions of the Torah unless it is in the way of their enjoyment, meaning to say that anything, the eating of which is forbidden, is liable for its eating when he enjoys it. So if you are, let's say, forbidden to eat orla, you're forbidden to eat orla, which is the fruit on a tree that's within 3 years. So that prohibition, when it says eating, what does it mean by eating? So part of the condition for you to fulfill what the Torah means by eating is that you benefited from it. You got pleasure, some kind of pleasure or enjoyment from it. So if you ate it, let's say you ate that fruit and the fruit was completely not ripe, and the experience was a like a very distasteful experience. You did not violate the prohibition of eating it, even though technically you did, but in order to fulfill the notion of eating that is here forbidden, there has to be enjoyment. Meaning to say that anything the eating of which is forbidden is liable for its eating when he enjoys it. They said afterwards, everyone concedes about forbidden mixtures of the field, that we do give lashes even when it is not in the way of its enjoyment. So that is different about this. This, just if you eat the end product, even if you didn't enjoy it, you're still going to get lashes. What is the reason? Since eating is not written about them, it doesn't say don't eat them. It just says tikdash or tukad esh. In other words, it has to be destroyed. So any use of it, any eating of it, that it doesn't constitute destroying it, is considered forbidden. The regulations of this commandment have already been explained in Tractate Kalaim, and one is only liable for it by the Torah in the land of Israel. So this is actually a biblical infraction that leads to kares, and that is eating the end product of Kalaim from a kerem, from a vineyard.
Rabbi,
Yeah.
don't
Yes.
understand. There's a distinction whether a Gentile planted it or whether a Jew planted what?
Well, the only reason I said that, is because you may end up in other trouble. The end product technically might not be forbidden if a Jew did it, but you have other problems like putting a stumbling block before the blind, which we interpret to mean aiding and abetting somebody else in doing a crime. You have things like a responsibility to rebuke your neighbor. You have a responsibility to we're all connected to each other, guarantors for each other. So there might be other considerations that would not allow for you to eat it if it was a Jew. I'm not saying you can't. I'm just saying there might be. It could if I've never heard of trying to figure out if first of all, I don't even know what this product would look like in a vineyard. I don't know what it would be. If there must have been something, but I don't know what an example of this would be that we could then decide what's the likelihood that a Jewish farmer produced this. So when you went to a supermarket and you're buying something, what's the likelihood that you're buying something that was this and produced by a Jew? So it adds complication if it's a Jew who made it. Again, I don't even know what this is. If there is such a thing, I'm gonna just try perplexity here for a second. All right, so it says here, historically and agriculturally, no unique hybrid fruit has been documented as a result of Kloe HaKerem. The fruit forbidden is simply the normal produce from the prohibited mixtures. Grapes, let's say you did wheat and barley in a vineyard, if they are planted together, they are forbidden. So it would be regular grapes. It's not talking about a new species. It certainly looks like it is talking about a new species, but this says the Rambam and later halachic sources clarify that when a person plants or maintains grain or certain vegetables together with grapes in the same vineyard, both the grapes and the other produce become forbidden. So, and it does say that there's no, its language was, no unique hybrid fruit has been documented as a result of Klaya Karam. So that's a quick look at perplexity on that. Okay. Now we are
Why
on.
is a nectarine okay?
So it's not from it's not from Kla'e Hakerem. It's not from a vineyard. It's not, this is, they said it for some reason, this only applies to a vineyard where the fruit is forbidden
Okay.
for some reason. Yeah. He prohibited us from drinking wine of libation. This means that the wine was dedicated to an idol. So it's some kind of sacramental wine that's going to be used in an idolatrous service. So that is the biblical prohibition. The biblical prohibition is wine that has been dedicated to be used as a sacramental wine in an idolatrous service. That this does not appear explicitly explained in scripture. However, he does say about idolatry, those that did eat the fat of their sacrifices and drank the wine of their drink offerings. Hence, just like the sacrifice is forbidden, so too is wine forbidden. And you know that it is forbidden to benefit from it, and that we give lashes for it, as is made known in the Talmud. So this is another characteristic of this, that not only is it forbidden for you to drink it, it's forbidden for you to get benefit from it. This is similar to milk and meat that we saw before. And that we give lashes for it, as it is made known in the Talmud. And the proof of wine, of a libation being forbidden, that its prohibitions from the Torah, and that is counted among the 9 commandments, is they're saying in Avodah Zarah, Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish both say anything forbidden by the Torah that falls into a mixture, whether of its own type or another type, is forbidden when there's enough of the forbidden item to impart flavor, except untithed produce and wine of libation, which render it forbidden with any amount when with its type, but only where it imparts flavor when with another type. This is an explicit proof that the wine of a libation is from the prohibition of the Torah. And also in the Sifrei, the halachic midrash, when it illustrated the description of Israelites spreading out at Shittim to be involved in licentiousness with the daughters of Moab, this last Torah portion, end of last Torah portion, beginning of this one, they said he would enter, and the pitcher near her was full of Ammonite wine, the wine of idolaters, having not yet been forbidden to Israelites. She said, would you like to drink? Behold, from their saying, the wine of idolaters having not yet been forbidden to Israelites, there is proof that after this in the Torah, without a doubt, it is forbidden. So again, the Rambam is spending time here just making it clear that this deserves to be counted amongst the negative commandments, even though there is no explicit warning against this. It is implicit, and you see from the treatment of the Gemara and the Midrash that it is, in fact, a negative commandment. However, they're saying that among the 18 things that they decreed, so this is 18 things that were decreed in the attic of name escapes me, but there were scholars in this attic, and at that time, that gathering, there were more scholars from the school of Shammai than Hillel, and they passed a lot of laws that day, which means that this was an example of 18 cases where the law is like the school of Shammai, not like the law. The general rule is that if we have a record of an argument between the school of Hillel and the school of Shammai, the general rule is that we hold like the school of Hillel. But in this particular case, it is known that there were more from the school of Shammai than the school of Hillel in that particular gathering, and apparently there was a quorum. So they were able to pass 18 laws, and amongst those was wine, as well as they're saying it is different. Wine of a libation is rabbinic. The intention was about the unspecified wine of Gentiles and not wine of libation itself. So now he's making, because it's a bit confusing. This is in Shabbos, and then it's going to be in Avodah Zarah. We're getting to this in about a week, to this particular Gemara. But what happened was this: there was wine of libation, actual sacramental wine for an idol, is forbidden by the Torah. The rabbis, and this was this moment when they were all gathered up there in that attic, when they forbade the wine of Gentiles in general. This says, even if the Gentile has nothing to do with idolatry, he just has wine. If the Gentile is working in your house and the Gentile pours wine for you in your house or at a restaurant, that is still forbidden. That is rabbinically forbidden. That's what they decreed. Why did they decree it? They decreed it as an anti-assimilation law. In those days, apparently, in those days, when people went drinking together, they were drinking wine. That's what they drank together. Apparently not beer and not harder alcohol, but they drank wine when they would socialize, gather in inns or restaurants or whatever. They did it over wine. So, and this was an assimilation opportunity, because the wine is something that is typically kosher. So it would be something where Jews and Gentiles would be drinking together. Plus, it's because of the nature of wine, you can bond. And the concern was that the men would become close friends, and they'd marry their children off together. So it would lead to intermarriage. Or as the famous joke goes, it would lead to mixed dancing. So because of that, they forbade any wine that was handled, an open bottle that or glass or whatever, that was handled by a Gentile, even it has nothing to do with idols. They attached that rabbinic law to the biblical law. So the biblical law is, for instance, like it just mentioned, you are not allowed to get benefit from the wine. So the wine from sacrament, the wine for idolatry, that wine you cannot get benefit from, which means you can't sell it. Let's say somebody gave it to you as a gift, can't sell it. You can't give it away as a gift to somebody, because that person will now be beholden to you, and therefore you're getting benefit even though you're giving it away. You have to like pour it out. You have to, and this is also the rule when even on the rabbinic law, that once it is considered stam yenam, the regular wine of Gentiles, and the wine becomes forbidden under this rabbinic law. So once that happens, you can't sell it. You can't even give it away as a gift. Now that wine, so that would mean, for instance, let's say somebody gave you a non-kosher wine as a gift. That non-kosher wine is qualifies as stam yenam because at one point it was handled by Gentiles. And therefore it would be forbidden to get any benefit from it. The one exception to this rule is if the wine itself was cooked. If the wine itself was cooked, this is an exception to the biblical rule. If the wine is cooked, no, it is not it is not available for use in idolatry. They would never use boiled wine because it was considered inferior. They would never use that kind of wine for an idol, and therefore it is considered safe wine on a biblical on the biblical level. So therefore it was considered safe wine on the rabbinic level. So that's why if you have boiled wine or cooked wine, what we call yain mavushal, you're allowed to drink it even though it's been handled by a Gentile. So again, the end product of the rabbinic law is based on the rules of the biblical law. They attached it to the biblical law, but it's all rabbinic, and it's an anti-assimilation law. So he is suggesting that the discussion in Shabbos and then in the Gemara and Avodah Zarah is not talking about the biblical prohibition. It's talking about the rabbinic prohibition. The wine of libation itself is surely forbidden by the Torah. And you already know this by saying there are 3 wines, etc. The regulation of this commandment has already been explained in the last chapter of Avodah Zarah. Again, this was a challenging one for him because he had to first establish that it deserves to be counted as a negative commandment because it's not explicitly mentioned in the Torah in the way of a negative commandment. But he shows you how he got to the place to consider it biblically forbidden and deserving to be listed in this list of negative commandments. And then he was just clarifying what could be a misunderstanding because there's also a discussion of a separate thing. This wine, there is a rabbinic prohibition as well, but it's not this. This is not a rabbinic prohibition. The wine that's sacramental to Avodah Zarah is not rabbinic. That rabbinic stuff it was talking about in the Gemara is a different subject. That's talking about general wine of Gentiles. It is weird to people nowadays that you're allowed to drink beer, you're allowed to drink hard alcohol, you can drink mixed drinks, etc., with Gentiles, but you can't drink. It's just based on wine, and that also seems to be because that was historically the drinking that they were doing at that time was wine. And when they made a gzeira, you don't expand it. They have to expand it. If they didn't expand it, you don't expand it. Especially this one. It's an anti-assimilation law. Making these decrees is a dangerous. It's a dangerous area to go in for leadership, as we know from prohibition in America. You have to be very careful, and you don't want to make decrees that add extra hardship to people unless it's absolutely necessary. So it's left to a body like the Sanhedrin to make these kind of decrees, and once they made them, you can't add to them. I'll give you another example of this. You're not allowed to ride a horse on Shabbos. Even though biblically riding a horse on Shabbos is not forbidden, but it's rabbinically forbidden. the technical use is that you may break off a branch from a tree and to use it as a switch when you're riding the horse. Anyways, it's forbidden to ride a horse on Shabbos. So there are people who believe that today it should be forbidden to ride a bicycle on Shabbos as a kind of extension of the prohibition to ride a horse on Shabbos. And there are even people who had other concerns, like maybe the bike will break down and you'll have to fix it. Or maybe this bright bike is, since it's capable of taking you outside the tchum, maybe you'll go outside of the permitted area for you to go on Shabbos. There are people who want to extend this to bikes and scooters and etc. And technically you can't. You cannot extend that. Whatever their decrees were about that thing, and that's it. You can't broaden it or extend it. The reason that is the actual reason that you're not supposed to ride a bike on Shabbos is it's not Shabbosdik. That is, if you look in halachic authorities like Rabbi Ovadia Yosef and others, that's what it comes down to. That it's not considered Shabbosdik to ride a bike on Shabbos. But if it wasn't for that, there's no biblical or rabbinic prohibition out there. So that'd be another example of the fact that once there's a gzeira, once there's a decree, a fence that's being put up, you don't extend the fence. So weirdly, it ends up that you can drink whiskey or beer with a Gentile, but you can't drink wine with a Gentile.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Now I hear you. Yeah.
Rats. Forgot what I was going to say. Sorry.
I'm sure it was good. It will come to you. And when it comes to you, I look forward to hearing it. All right. Be well, guys.